Hello, everybody. Welcome to my
Hello.
welcome to my new series called Misshift, where we basically talk about everything that's going on, whether it's the car community, car culture, what the manufacturers are doing, and there's a lot to like as a car enthusiast, but there's certain things that can be better, that can be done better. I have a guest with me, Antonio,
How's it
and
going?
his car was actually previously featured on my channel. It was the G37 Coupe, and it looks and sounds quite a bit different now. So we're gonna have to redo that video sometime, so they can see like what's up with it now. But it had
It's
quite the
evolution
evolution.
right now.
Sorry, what was
It's
that?
currently broken.
It's currently broken. What happened?
Last 2 weeks ago, I had like a TPMS come on, and I was like, "Oh, I lost air." So I went to the gas station to put air in it, and when I turned around to pull up to the air pump, the
Mm-hmm.
tire slipped off the rim. So I
Ouch.
cautiously took it back home, lifted it up, put the donut on, and then we took it to the garage and found that it was leaking air because the paint was chipping off of the rim, like off of the barrel, so the sidewall wasn't sealing properly. So I managed to drive it for like 4 days, and then when I came home Friday night from school, you know how on my car, since it's a coupe, when you open the door, the window comes down a little bit, and then when you
Yeah,
close it, it goes back up.
yeah.
Well, I opened the door and it came down to like half, and I'm like, yeah, it's not supposed to happen, but whatever. I get in the car, I close the door, I turn it on, I go to put the window up, and it falls the rest of the way. So I'm like, okay. I think it slipped off the tracks. So I pull it in the garage, I take the door panel off, I undo everything, and then there's like another panel. So you have the metal door panel with like another panel on it. And I
Right.
got everything off of that smaller panel except for rivets. And I was confused as to why they would put rivets on it because that's what usually manufacturers do to keep you from taking shit off. So I was like, whatever, I'm not gonna fuck with it. I'm just gonna take it to the garage. So I took it to the garage, and Infinity being, I guess Nissan being Nissan, they don't. They found out it was the regulator, which a regulator works like a bike chain. It's kind of like two bearings with a cable that goes around it, and it moves the window up.
Right.
And the cable snapped, and I was like, okay, let's
Oh
just replace the
God.
regulator. But the regulator is like welded onto that door piece, so you have to buy the whole like panel.
Oh my God.
And he was like, I can get it from the dealer, but it's $1,000. So
Whoa.
I was like, dude, I'm gonna like drive with a garbage bag over the window. Like, I'm not paying a
Oh
thousand
my
dollars to fix a
God.
regulator. And I found this guy on eBay that was like, this has been sitting in my garage for months. Took it off my G37. The wife's gonna keep yelling at me, so somebody please buy it. So I just bought it today for $80.
I would say that's a lot better than $1,000.
Absolutely, dude. Hey, that's gonna get here like next week, so this will be like the
By,
third week without the car.
by the grace of God.
It's just
Yeah.
frustrating, man. I
Yeah.
posted on my story, it was like 2 nights ago. I've touched just about everything there is to touch in the motor, and I don't have any motor problems. It's all stupid stuff like window regulators and like valve stems.
That's Nissan for you, which we're actually gonna get into later in this episode. We're gonna talk about Nissan, but before we do that, we're gonna talk about the do's and don'ts for your first modded car, and we're also gonna talk about what we're gonna compare cheap cars with expensive mods versus expensive stock cars. But correction, we're gonna redo the video of your G once the window is fixed and once everything is
Once
all
it's warmer outside,
yeah.
that would be the best time.
Because
Like
working
March, April, around then.
yeah, because working on
Because the last one
cars.
we did in the winter, and it was like miserable.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
You couldn't drive with the windows down or anything because it was just freezing.
Yeah, I know it's ridiculous. That was a good video though.
It was a fun day.
Yeah, that was a fun video. This is my first driving video.
Definitely for you. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I can't believe
Yeah,
you let me drove
you
it.
drove the Focus before that, I think, right?
Yeah, I
You
drove a
Dominic's car
ST,
before that,
but it was like
but it
a
was like around the block.
yeah, no, it wasn't like a what I would want to do. It was just like a practicing driving manual type
Yeah,
video.
yeah. This man's whipped my car. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna do a little second gear pull. Drove all the way to the end of fourth. Just like 130 miles an hour, no biggie.
I didn't. I'm not used to cars that fast. Well, I am now, but I wasn't before then. Mind you, I was driving a Prius, and
And then he
now.
drove the Tesla.
Oh yeah, I did drive the Tesla one. By the way, look at my hoodie. Totally not biased or anything like that. But hey, I'm not a fanboy though. I have a BMW shirt and the Toyota shirt, so you know.
I don't know. I have an Infinity beanie. I don't know where it's at. It's here somewhere, but I got it from the dealer.
Yeah, I'm surprised I don't see you wear more like Infinity stuff.
I think it's corny to wear car apparel, if I'm being honest. I used to like wear shit when I was younger, and I just like grew out of it.
I feel like I don't have.
It's all because there's a picture of that dude at H2O, I think it was 2 years ago, who crashed the G35, and he has like the bucket hat on with the black Infinity shirt. He's just there on the phone, like, and he just became an H2O meme forever.
Yo, I'm gonna have to check that out later. All right, so let's just jump right into it. So you have a modded car, I don't, so you're probably gonna have more experience, with this question. But so like, what are some of the stuff that I should and shouldn't do when it comes to like modifying a car?
Okay, so when you don't have, when it's like mop job money, when you don't have like actual income, you should never do anything to the car that you can't afford to maintain. So the best example of that would be, let's say you make $4,000 and a supercharger kit is $4,000. Don't want to buy it because you don't have money to deal with all the problems that could arise from having a supercharger. Just stuff like that. Or like, let's say you have the common first car is a 335. That's what a lot of people buy. You buy a blow-off valve, you buy intakes, maybe downpipes, and you just put an MHD tune on it, and then your turbos blow up, and you're left without a car because you didn't have money to replace the turbos.
Yeah.
So just do your research before you make big jumps in power. Cosmetically, you can do whatever you wanted. It's your car. At the end of the day, it's not anybody else's car. You can do whatever you want to it. I had plastic dip all over my first one. I grew out of it now, but I don't think anybody should be judged for doing aesthetic stuff to their car. It's their car. They can do as they please.
Yeah, it's just.
But in terms of the motor, just be careful how deep you invest into it because you need to have extra money on the side for all the preventative maintenance and whatnot.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of like overlook, the maintenance that comes with making major modifications to your car, like a supercharger kit or even a tune, because like at the end of the day, like the car didn't come from the factory like that.
Right. I mean, that could be said for a car itself also. Like I bought this car and then a week later the motor blew up and I didn't have money to buy a new motor. So I was left without a car for a couple months.
Oof.
Like even, besides mods, if you're going to buy a car, like even if it's a good deal, if you don't have extra money on the side, it's a risky investment. You never know what could happen. Like Nissan's been making this motor forever.
Yeah.
And it just odd luck, it spun a bearing. Only 70,000 miles, what are you going to do? But it happens. You have to be prepared.
Yeah, that have money on the side, anything can happen. That hit different for me.
It's
With the
hard
Taurus.
to, sit on a pile of cash and be like, I'm going to save it. Especially if you're a kid and you can see all the stuff you can do to cars.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to just not blow through it all.
Yeah, definitely.
But you have no choice.
So, I haven't modified a car yet. I do plan on doing so for sure. But I think a lot of people overlook tires, brakes, and alignment. You see what I'm saying?
The common rule of thumb, if you make your car go faster, it needs to stop faster also. Like that's something that a lot of people overlook. The faster it goes, the faster it needs to stop as well. So if you put a bunch of money in the motor, you need to maybe get better discs, stronger pads, and alignment. Like if you don't invest in an alignment, you deserve to crash your car. Like it's $100. It's not like it's some crazy investment. It's $100 in a couple hours out of your day, and it's preventative. Just like how balancing your wheels is.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for not doing it.
Yeah, $100 in terms of cars, that's like
Right.
That's like
Same thing with people that put off getting their oil changed. It's
Oh.
like $50-$60 if you do it yourself, maybe even less. Like why would you put off getting an oil change?
Definitely. How often do you change your oil, by the way? I change mine every 3,000 miles.
Same, 3,000. If it's hot out and I'm like beating on it real bad and I know I'm burning oil, like 1,500. But 9 months out of the year, I change it every 3,000. Usually, like before I go to the beach, regardless of what mileage I'm at, I'll change it because like different altitude, humidity. You don't want to be like mixing elements. Also, like we have to put a different tune on the car when we go down to the beach, so I try
Oh,
to just
really?
change the oil then. Like it's a different altitude. It's a lot lower down there,
Oh,
and the
right,
car
right.
runs worse. It runs a lot more rich down there because the air up here, the air is thinner, so you need the car to run more rich because there's less air. So once you get down there, it's just I was at like 6 oil pressure the first time I went down to the
Jeez,
beach at idle. It was so bad.
that's crazy.
Even so, it's supposed to be. It's still pretty low. It's like 15 at idle, which is really really low. But 6 is dangerously low.
It's like,
Like that's fun bearing level.
would you say that it's important to get your car sorted before like you start adding stuff to it? You know, like alignment, make sure you got good tires, make sure your brakes are
I
good.
think I think those should be like you should stay on top of that regardless if you mod the car or not. There's certain
Right.
things that I will say a lot of like a lot of the car guys just like ignore. Like let's say you have a rusty like sway arm, stuff like that, like stuff that could break. It's just one of those things like yeah, if it breaks, I'll fix it. Like there's a couple things that the car doesn't have to be spotless. It doesn't like it's not like it can't have any rust. It's just you should look at it and you should say if this breaks, am I gonna die? And if the answer is yes, you should replace it. If not, you'll cross that road when you get there.
It's a question I had to ask myself several times.
Because like a sway bar is cracked or rusty. It's whatever. It breaks cars down for a day or two and you replace it. That's not the end of the world. But if you have warped rotors, you got to change that because you're not going to stop. There's a line that you can like keep track of.
I may or may not have warped rotors on the Camry.
I've only actually gone through 2 sets on this car so far in 2.5 years. As long as you
It's not
like
bad.
don't abuse them in the heat, it's fine.
Yeah, two and a half. I mean, that's not bad.
How
Well,
much I
like,
drive and how many miles I put on it, yeah, that's pretty good. And they're not drilled and slotted either, they're just regular rotors.
oh yeah,
The car came with drilled and slotted, but when I bought the car they were warped anyway. And I wasn't gonna spend $600 on new rotors, so
oh
I just
yeah, I
bought
know.
regular ones, $200, and I was like, I don't track the car, like I don't sure they won't warp, but I'll never like maximize their usage either. I don't track the car. It's not like I need drilled and slotted, all that stuff.
Okay, so for like the beginner mods, like just like an intake or an exhaust, um, would you say that do you think there's certain things you should do before you modify like simple stuff like exhaust or intake? Is it something that should be
Like, what kind
done?
of simple stuff do I recommend?
No, I'm saying like, is there any reason why you should hold off on mods like that?
No, no, not at all. If it's like in this day and age, you go to an exhaust shop and for $60. If you have a single exit, even less, like 30. The guy I go to, he charged $40 a pipe, $40
That's
for a
not
muffler
bad.
delete. Like, why wouldn't I don't know. There's some things like that, like plasti dipping. Like if you plasti dip an emblem, can's $7. I think you can definitely do both at the same time.
Yeah.
And if you're not changing anything function wise, like an intake, yeah, I'd hold off on that because not only is it a bit more expensive, but when it comes to intakes, you can almost do harm because there's more, air coming into the motor, but the motor is not tuned for it. So yeah, not
Mm,
only will you be like losing potential power, but depending on the car, it could be worse, especially if the intake's located, like say behind the grill. You don't know how good it is at like stopping bugs and stuff like that or water. So
yeah.
if you get water in the intakes, that's it, your motor's dead. So stuff like that, bigger stuff that change the way the motor runs. Yeah, I would hold off on that.
So you definitely want to get it tuned before you get an intake.
No, you want to get them together. So when you put stuff into the motor, be it anything from intakes to like a camshaft, as soon as you put it on, you want to get the car retuned. You don't want to tune before because there's no need. Car is running optimal anyway. But like the day I installed my intakes was the day I tuned the car also. So
Mm.
that's just the best way to do it. The last
That's
one,
so that's why
I
when I
had
videoed your
intakes on
car, you
it.
didn't have an intake yet.
No, it wasn't tuned either.
Right. Okay,
All I
that
had
makes
done to it
sense
at
now.
that point was the upper manifold, I think, and the whole exhaust apart from the Y pipe. I think at that point, that's everything that was on the car because I had the test pipes on it, the headers were on it, and the muffler delete was done. Yeah. Other than that, it was fairly untouched.
Okay. This is good. This is a learning experience for me too, because I don't know what I'm doing.
I mean, it all depends on the car, really. There's certain, like what you do to an Infiniti, you can't do to a BMW because, first off, it's naturally aspirated versus turbo. And second, some of the stuff that you do on like a BMW costs way less, and in some cases way more. Like the prices are different. Best way I can describe it is a tune on my car, said and done, dynoed and everything was like $1,100. On my brother's Audi, not dyno tune, just a flash tune, was like $4,000.
Sheesh.
But at the same time, you have MHD for BMW, which starts at like $200. So it's hard to compare different types of cars when it comes to
Yeah.
what you should do.
So the key is basically do your research.
All right, just see what other people have done.
Yeah.
If you want to be unique, by all means. Like I took a huge gamble with my exhaust because nobody ever did that before, but it's like taking over. Everybody wants to know what I've done to it.
Yeah, because I haven't heard another G like that.
That and it makes the same amount of power as a single, which is like unheard of.
Really?
Like normally Tomei's ISRs, like they all make way more power than any dual can, but because mine's like a true dual, 3 inches all the way back, it is. But at the same time, it's not like ear-shatteringly loud either, because I had them welded 4 sets of resonators. So it's a complicated one. From the Y pipe back, it's all custom fab. It was only like $120 to do it. So at that point, I was like, I might as well try. If I don't like it, I'll just put a single on it. But I like it, so it does go through gaskets a lot though. Nobody's business. I change gaskets like every 3 months. Probably because I abuse the flame map also, but it's annoying.
Oh, by the way, that's one of the new things about his G. Oh yeah, I should also mention, just to touch on your brother's Audi, that the S6, the 2008 S6 that was on my channel previously, that's his brother's car. Well, it was his brother's car.
6,000 miles. He bought it at 6,000 miles, and it was 2008.
That's
He bought it in
crazy.
2019, I think. 2018. So it was a 12-year-old car with 6,000 miles.
It must have.
And even so, he
Wow, that's
sold it
cool.
with 24, I think.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Insane.
And he sold it
Crazy.
on Cars and Bids, if I'm not wrong, right?
On Doug DeMuro's website. It sold for 22.5, something like that. Maybe he bought it for, I think it was
Sheesh.
18. So put miles on it and made a profit.
Wow. He drove the car for free, and now he has he has an Infiniti himself now.
It's a 600 wheel horsepower Q60.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that thing is nuts. It's unbelievable what they've done to it. He took a gamble on, because normally Infinitis are tuned by, at least remote tuned. It's either admin tuning or Z1. Those are like the two big companies that mess around with these cars. Q60s also use Ecutech, not UpRev, which is the software itself. Like a GTR would run on Ecutech. But there was this guy, but he was like tuning out of his garage, like at home. It was not like a big tuner guy. And my brother found like some of the times that he was putting down in his car at the court, like at the drag strip, and he's like, "Hey, like, do you want to try and tune my car?" Because
Wow.
the thing with my brother's car is he has up or down pipes, which for Q60s are extremely hard to find. He managed to buy them like the day before, I think it was EPA came down, with like that crazy restriction on catalytic converter modifications. Like the same reason you don't find catalyst downpipes anymore. So he managed to get the uppers and put them on the car. And the guy was like, "Dude, I think we can make some insane numbers out of this car even on stock turbos."
It's a stock
And right
turbo?
now, it's stock turbo, man.
Oh yeah, it's twin.
It's stock turbo and
Sheesh.
yeah, it's stock turbo and stock heat exchanger, so it has like no aftermarket intercooler. And the same mods that my brother has is on his Q60, and he just broke nines, which is like unbelievable for stock turbos. And they're running the same tune, but my brother's tires, he has good tires on the car. I think they're Michelin's, but they just will not stick. It's just too much power.
Oh yeah, with that much power,
Yeah.
like, How
It's
wide are
a
the
nuts.
tires?
I think they're 245s all around.
Oh yeah, no, that's gonna be spin central.
Yeah, but the problem is it's all-wheel drive,
Oh, it
which I
is?
think my brother's is, yeah, it's all-wheel drive.
Wow.
The other one that the guy has, though, it's rear-wheel drive, so you can stagger them. The problem with all-wheel drive is you can't really go wider unless you make all four tires wider, because the axle doesn't really appreciate that. You can
Oh
mess
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
up.
true.
You can mess up the diff, basically, in the transfer case. So that guy was on like 305s, I think, and 245s up front, because that's fine for dragging. Well, in this car, it's not like you can put 305s on all four. You're never
Oh
going to be
yeah,
able to steer the car again.
that's gonna tramline like crazy.
Uh, so I think he said he might go up to like 265 all around, but he doesn't do like pulls from the dig enough to make it really matter. And he usually just drives it on low boost, because high boost is like 38 pounds of boost, which is just
Wow.
insane. And low boost is like 30, which it's like 500 wheel. It's fine like that. It's still enough power.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, that thing is nuts.
Well, like, yeah, that's a good point too that you mentioned that he doesn't do digs too much because going from the start, like doing a dig like that causes a lot more stress than
But yeah, it's a lot of torque. It's just a
yeah.
lot of things twisting on the car, a lot of force all around. You're stressing the axles, you're stressing the diff, you're stressing the wheels themselves, the motor, even. Like
So would you
stressing
say
turbos, it's a headache.
if you plan on like drag racing your car, you should look into upgrading the
If you're a
differential?
teenager, don't even worry about
Oh
drag
yeah,
racing.
no,
It's not worth the headache.
yeah, no, it's not even worth it unless you got money.
Like even at my age, I'm not interested. Like Gavin is trying to do it in his Firebird,
Yeah.
and like it'll put down times, but the car just keeps breaking. Just too much torque. If you do pulls like crazy, it's just like it's inevitable. Unless you make everything out of like billet, it's gonna keep snapping stuff. He just snapped his axles the other week.
Ouch. Gavin, if you're listening to this, good luck with your car, man.
I think it's fast as hell. I think it's so fast. And
Yeah. And also, if
he
you're
put an
listening to
LS3
this,
in it, so
oh, it's the LS3.
he finally took our advice because he kept putting like 400 strokers and 383 strokers, and we're like, dude, just put an LS.
Yeah.
Like, sure, everybody hates LS guys because it's like a $600 motor and you make 500 horsepower.
It's a GM
But
though.
like he's already like 20 grand deep into that thing, so it's time for some
Jeez.
reliability.
And like,
So he put an LS in it, put some heads on it, an exhaust, and I think it makes like 420 wheel. It's insane.
it's one thing if you LS swap like a Japanese car or like a Z, but I mean,
Yeah, it's like
It's
in
a
the
GM
heritage,
car.
right? Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
only reason that the Firebird didn't have an LS is because it being as good as the Corvette would make the Corvette pointless. It's the only reason it didn't have an LS.
Some cannibalism.
Yeah, 100%. That's the same reason the Q60s don't have a VR38. What are you going to do? Make a $30,000 car as good as a GTR? You just
Yeah.
can't. The car would never sell again.
Yeah, that's true. That's to downgrade it a little bit. So
Yeah.
before we move on from this topic, so what's your advice for people that want to modify their car but still want to stay on the budget, still don't want to spend like unreasonable amounts of money, or is it kind of like it is what it is, you have to have a lot of money to do so?
No, you don't need to have a lot of money. My last Infinity, I don't think I put $1,000 into it. I'm gonna be honest.
G25.
Yeah, apart from the rims, I don't think the intake was like $400, and everything else was plasti dip and vinyl wrap, like on the interior and stuff like that. The wing was only 150, even though it was carbon fiber. You can definitely do it on a budget. And that car looked nice. Like that car was a nice car.
It was a nice car.
It definitely didn't look like it only had $600-700 put into it. No, you can definitely do it on a budget. It's just you get what you pay for.
Yeah, so Antonio had
if
two
it breaks
Infinis.
or if it peels, you gotta be ready for it.
Yeah, so by the way, guys, this is Antonio's second Infinity. The one prior to this was a 2011 G25 sedan,
Yeah.
and the only reason why he got rid of it is because of like you got into it. Well,
I
somebody
got
crashed into
T-boned by
you.
a Brazilian lady. Yeah.
Ouch.
All right, though. He gave me the check, and I bought that one now.
Sure
All
did.
from the insurance.
All right, so what's better to you? A cheap car with expensive mods or an expensive stock car?
Depends. That really does depend on like the car. I don't know.
I
I
would.
think I'd have to go with a cheap car with expensive mods because
Hmm.
I would take, I would take an RX-7, an R32, like a 94 ZR1. Like, there's just certain cars like that I would take over like an M4, like a new one, and you're still
Hmm.
saving $30,000, 40,000, 100%.
I don't
There's
know about
obviously some
now.
cars that I geek over, but no, I think that it just like makes more sense to me.
Well, maybe
I
you would
don't see
save
like the
money.
benefit.
Maybe you would save money in the past, but I don't know about now with today's car market, especially like R32
Yeah,
Skyline.
they use I don't know an R32. If you import it, same. I found an RX-7 the other day in Japan, like $23,000. It was an FD, and
It's
it
not
only had
bad.
like 40,000 miles on it. It's insane. The market in America is bad, not in the rest of the world.
Hmm. Interesting.
You know, the used car market in Japan, especially for those cars, is still pretty cheap. I had a buddy who just imported an R32. If you've seen it around, it's white.
I don't think I've seen it.
I've seen Matsunoco a couple times. He imported it, I think, last year for 25, and same thing, 30, 40,000 miles, like nothing on them.
25, like once you factor in importing.
Yeah, like with registration fees and everything. Importing a car isn't very expensive. It's a long process, but it actually costs more to ship a car from California to Pennsylvania than it does to ship it from Japan to Pennsylvania. Shipping it across the country is a lot more expensive than putting it on a boat and shipping it over. Because with a truck, you can fit 3, 4 cars off of it or on it, so your profit margin is pretty small. But with the whole freighter, there's a lot more stuff that's bringing in money, so they don't have to charge as much. So importing a car overseas is actually cheaper than shipping one across the country. Because
Okay.
Christian just imported I guess not imported. He shipped when he bought his G. He bought it from California,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like $1,600 to get it here, and it was open air and everything. It's
It's not too
expensive.
bad.
That's pretty expensive. That guy paid $1,000 to get it here from Japan. Like that's insane.
I mean, you also like have to factor in like how much you value your time because, if you want to buy a car from California, you're gonna have to fly all the way over there and then drive the car all the way back.
If we weren't in school, we would have done it. That was the plan.
Really?
Yeah, as long as you don't have a job in like school, you're not gonna be missing important stuff. Then you're a car guy. Why wouldn't you? A car can do it. I'm not worried about that.
I mean, I guess that's fair. Yeah, and kind of going back to that, I think like cheap car with mods versus expensive stock car. I think it depends on like how much patience you have. All right, so we're back. Sorry.
Yeah, as I was saying, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it depends on how you're raised. Like the kind of cars you're around. If you come from a family with money and your first car is like an M3, yeah, you're gonna buy an M3 and you're gonna take it to the dealer whenever you want because you have money for it. And you're gonna stay in new cars for the rest of your life. If you come from a family, let's say like Gavin's, where you've been building cars since you were a kid, there's
Yeah.
nothing you love more than turning $1,000 car into one that can beat like $100,000 car. It just depends on how you like it. I don't know. I don't think one is better than the other, or I don't think anybody should prefer one over the other. It's all down to your preference.
Yeah, it just
Like if
depends
you have
on
money
like,
to buy it, go and buy a brand new GTR. Go ahead. I don't know. Like,
yeah. Wait, but the other thing about stock cars is especially if you're buying one new is like it's gonna have a warranty. You know what I'm saying? Like if something goes wrong with it, like it's gonna be a lot easier. It's gonna be a lot more straightforward to fix the problem. Whereas with a modded car, like it depends
warranties
on.
are a bit of a scheme, though. Warranties, they get you with that. They'll say it's like bumper to bumper covers everything, and then you go in and we're like, oh, we don't cover that. The way I've always seen it is if you have money for an M4 or a GTR, you have money to maintain an M4 or a GTR. So I don't really believe in the
Sure.
warranty thing. Let's say you buy like a 2020 Chevy Cruise for like $15,000. Yeah, the warranty's gonna cover everything. The parts are cheap, but on performance cars, the warranties they don't really
It's a little bit
they
different.
don't really believe in that. They don't really work. My dad had a warranty on his car, the S550, and he took it in
Nice.
for I think he was having like a drivetrain malfunction, and they're like, "Oh, we don't cover that." And he's like, "It says right here, bumper to bumper, drivetrain, powertrain, all that, and they're like, yeah, we don't cover it. So we canceled the warranty.
Would you remember when the R35 first came out? Like, I believe like if you did launch control enough times, that would void the transmission warranty.
No, you would just blow it up. You have to. Yeah. There was a huge ordeal because when that car came out, everybody was buzzing about how fast it was 0 to 60. So people would buy it and just start doing pulls, out right out of the dealership. But there's a break-in period for cars. So that was a huge problem when the GTR first came out. People just kept blowing them up because they weren't waiting for the break-in period. Because finally there's a car that can beat a Ferrari or whatever, and it only costs $60,000. So it was just a different crowd, different market of people not realizing like what it means to buy a new car and like a performance car like that.
You just want to jump right to it.
That was a huge problem when it came out. I can't blame them. I probably would have done the same thing. But
yeah.
You live and you learn.
Yeah, Yeah, so I guess to answer that question, really, it just depends on, the type of person that you are. Like, if you, because, some people are like real, like the real weird about like modifying stuff on the cars, even when it comes to just changing the wheels and just like basic stuff about that. Like some people want to keep it like 100% stock, which I kind of get because I kind of used to be the same way, but yeah, I think it just depends on the
that goes both ways. You have these people that build cars. Let's say it's like a $500 car, they put $1,000 into it, and then they see an M4 and they're like, oh, at least the bank doesn't own my car. Like there's bad people on both sides.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my one boy said that. But the thing is,
the
bank
like
doesn't even own your car.
1985, like, right.
The bank doesn't even own your car though.
No, I think it's weird.
Yeah.
It's like whatever you like, that's fine. Go with it, but everybody's different. Everybody has their preferences. Yeah, there's a couple instances where people have like absolutely disgusting cars, and they deserve whatever heat they get for it. But 99% of the time, people live their own lives. I don't understand why people have such a big deal or get so tight about it.
Yeah, no, the way I see it, like if you don't like somebody's car, like, then get your own, and then do whatever it is like you want to do with
and make it how you want to make it. Yeah, 100%.
Like, why hate when you can just like do your own thing? Because like a lot of these people
can't even afford it.
Right? Because a lot of these people, they're like, oh, like, why on God's green earth would you spend like this and this for a freaking GTR? Why would you spend this much money on a Skyline? Like, I would have done this instead. And it's like, it didn't do it.
Because I can, yeah. I don't know.
Like, if you want to do it differently, then go ahead and do it. Like, let me see what you're gonna do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the car community is plagued with people like that, especially now.
Oh my God,
Infinitis, because
so bad now.
A couple of years ago, the G's, like around when I got mine, they hit like the bottom of the depreciation curve. They're going back up now because everything's going back up.
Yeah.
But around when I got my car was around when a lot of people my age got this car, and a lot of people that can't afford to do like real nice stuff to it. So you have people putting somewhat cheap mods on it, and then you have these 30-year-olds that like have a mortgage and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, like what do you do to these cars? Like, I'm sorry that you're 30 years old and the best thing you can afford is a G37. That's not my problem.
Exactly.
To each their own. Right.
Shouldn't you be driving a GTR right now? Do you feel like there's a little bit of like gatekeeping too? When it comes to like the car community, like, oh, like you're not old enough to understand like what you're supposed to do with it, or you shouldn't even be driving an Infiniti. Like, you should be driving a Civic right now.
Not with the JDM community. That's like an American thing, like with the boomers that have like the Corvettes and the Mustangs. Is if some like younger kid comes in like a 5th gen Camaro or like a new Mustang, like the Coyote, they're like, oh, like you don't even understand what it's like. Like, do you even know how to turn a wrench? Like that's a boomer problem.
Yes.
That doesn't really happen with like German or Japanese cars.
Except for when you go on the forums though. Whatever you do, guys, stay away from forums.
On the forums, bro, everybody, there's just trolls on the internet. If you want to look something up, There's a forum that probably exists from 10 years ago that tells you how to do what you need to do. You don't need to ask anybody. Just avoid it at all costs. Or the Facebook groups. Those are bad also.
Oh god, don't even get me started. It's so weird, bro. All right, so Nissan, and by extension, the luxury division, Infiniti. So, obviously, you own an Infiniti product. You have for several years now. So, what do you think about the brand now, as in like the current lineup? You know how they're doing right now.
Infinity,
'Cause I have a lot to say.
I think Infinity is dying. That's just my opinion. So
Sure.
let's say it's just, how can I describe this? So the mid '90s, they put out an affordable luxury car with the Q40, which like blew everybody away. And the Q40, I think it was the Q45 actually.
Yeah.
It was like the hype of the town, a cheap car that may not have looked as good as the Mercedes or the Benz, but it functioned very similarly. And you kind of see that today with a lot of Japanese cars. They may not have the status, but in terms of functionality, they're not very different from some of these cars that cost 10 times more. So that was where they started, and they had a really strong market with stuff like that. And then enter the early 2000s, and they come out with the G35,
Just took
which
off.
was an interesting. It was an interesting concept that diverted their previous market away and just included an even bigger one of like the tuner community, and that car blew up. And then they introduced the G37, which was the exact same thing, just better in every single way, and
Right.
it did just as well. And then there was this point in between like G37 and the Q60 where they tried to give you all of the sporty things that a Nissan has while still keeping the luxury that they offered 20 years ago, which
Yeah.
is a great formula, and I think it works really well in the G, in my opinion. However, in like the Q60, I think that the car is like really confused. It really doesn't know what it wants to be. Like in my car and in other Gs, I think it can be a very smooth ride, a very luxurious ride. Not like, some other cars, but it's not bad by any means. And then if you
No.
want it to be a sports car, it can become a sports car like that. In the Q60s, you have a really sporty motor, big twin turbo motor that makes a lot of power, and it's comfortable, but it's drive by wire, which goes against like everything that a car guy stands for, because it's hydraulic until you die. That's the best way. There was nothing wrong with it, but they wanted autonomous driving, which
Oh shoot. Ooh. Oh, you're back. Yeah, I don't know if it was my internet or your internet. Probably my internet. But
assure you it was not mine.
yeah, my internet's garbage. Took a huge.
I have school internet, so it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, for real. All right, so okay, we're good now. Still recording. All right, so you cut out right when you said that the Q60, like they had the direct adaptive steer because they wanted to be kind of future proof for
Okay, yeah.
autonomous cars.
They wanted it to appeal to the people that buy Infinity for it to be a more luxurious Nissan. But then you have these people that buy it for a more luxurious Nissan, and you have a plastic dashboard and a plastic armrest and a plastic center console, and you have two really tacky screens in the middle that look like they're right out of an iPad.
Yeah, it's not that nice.
Like the car lacks features that you'd see in a luxury car, which is fine. But they need to focus on one thing or the other. Before, like in my opinion, with G35 and the G37, they focused entirely on luxury, which is why people liked it so much, because it was a sports car that didn't feel cheap. Like in a 350Z, you hit a bump, you feel like the whole car's gonna fall apart.
Oh yeah.
Which some people like.
Yeah.
It's fun. It makes you feel like you're driving a race car. But in Infiniti, it's a bit more composed, it's a bit more relaxed, it's less dramatic, and that's why people like the car so much, because it's a sports car that you can daily. But in these new ones, they kind of, the best way I can describe it is like, this is the sport, how much sport stuff the Q60 has, or the G37 has. This is how much luxury stuff the Q60 has. Or, I'm messing up. This is how much sport stuff the G37 has. This is how much luxury stuff the G37 has. The Q60 pushed it out more, but kind of like turn it upside down because they lost something here in the middle of what you need to have because like that's what makes
100%.
Infinity Infinity.
Yeah,
It's a great
100%.
car. It really is. But in terms of like an Infinity, it's not what they're trying to do. It's not like what the brand is based on. Which is why I think like it's gonna tank. I think this past year was the worst year ever for sales. It went down like 142% from last year. It's a horrible year for Infinity.
Yeah.
The only thing that really shows promise, because realistically, the only people that are buying Q60s are people in the car community. People are that want luxury cars are buying a Kia Stinger. They're buying, and if they want a coupe, they're buying like an RC350. Nobody's really buying
Okay.
Q60s anymore.
What?
There's just car like it. The Lexus has like ventilated seats. It has heated steering wheel stuff that like you can get on a Q60, but you better be ready to pay for the options.
Yeah,
Like
true.
it's just not the best, and it's expensive now. Q60 is a brand new one's 50, $60,000. That's you're pushing like M4 money there, which anybody's gonna take an M4 over a Q60.
I think, but
Like they lost what they had.
but you know they have a since the Q50s and the Q60s aren't really selling that well. They have massive discounts though, especially like for when it comes to leasing. I think that's really like the only silver lining when it comes to buying those cars brand new. And if you buy a used one, like they depreciate it like crazy.
Yeah, my brother got his for 32, I think. And right now, if you want to buy one, it's like 45, just because everything's going up in price. But yeah,
Really?
he bought it. He bought it at a good time. 2018 as well. It's almost brand new. It's a red sport, all-wheel drive with every feature you could possibly want. Yeah, they tanked really badly after a couple years because not only that, but no car guy wants drive by wire. Like when he
Yeah.
picked up the car, he had me drive it, and he's like, "Can you tell it's drive by wire?" And I'm not going to be that guy that he just spent $30,000 on a car. I'm not going to be like, "Oh yeah, it sucks." I was like, "Oh yeah, it's all right, it's okay," but no, it's garbage. Like the drive by wire system sucks. It simulates vibrations, which because it's a cheap car, it simulates something like with a delay. So you'll hit a bump, and it's not too late after, but perception picks it up pretty easily. It's after the bump. You feel like a tiny little vibration in the steering wheel. And
Oh
then
boy.
it has the settings, like the the power steering, like the sport settings of the steering. And it's very similar to a thing that Motor Trend had pointed out with a drive-by-wire system a couple years ago. The lightest setting feels like there's no power steering, and then
Yeah.
the sport setting feels like the power steering pump is gone, and you're just like it's garbage. Like and then like at higher speeds, it's really nimble, which is really concerning because it just feels like the car is not connected to the road, which you never want from a sports car.
Do you feel
So
like as
no, the
a
drive-by-wire system is garbage.
does it have like a irrationally fast like steering ratio too? That's one of the things that I heard about it.
It not enough that like it sticks out. It's definitely different, but not like crazy. Not and it's not something that I would like bring up in conversation with somebody like right now. Like I don't think it's insane, but yeah, it's noticeable. My biggest concern with it was there's certain things that you can't turn off, like some of the stability control, some of the lane assist. And if you try and send the car around a turn, you can turn off every assist you possibly want. It will try and correct itself, which
Yeah.
is the weirdest feeling ever. Like if you want to drift a car, like you should be prepared of what you have to do, and if you know what to do, you're going to be fine. But that car thinks it knows better, and it'll try and correct it, and you just spin out completely. Or
Oh
in other
boy.
circumstances, like if you, this had happened one of the first times I drove the car. I was extremely far away from the car in front of me, like maybe 10 car lengths, and the light was red and
Really?
it just turned. The light was red and it just turned green. And since it turned green, I stopped braking and I started accelerating because the guy was going to leave from the light. But since the car registered that somebody was stopped in front of me, there's this little like pin almost that pushes back up on the gas pedal. And it is the
Oh.
strangest feeling ever. It's or like if you want to pass somebody and you kind of thread the needle, you'll push the gas down and it'll just push it back up. It's the weirdest thing ever.
What?
And you can't turn it off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's they fumbled the bag really bad with it. Granted, it's the first time they ever did it. Like the first time for a lot of manufacturers sucks, but they did a really bad job.
Yeah, I agree 100%, shocker. But I think that like the new line of Infinities, they missed the mark by a lot.
Yeah.
Cause
The only like semblance of hope we have is with the SUVs, because that car is booming in like the soccer mom market.
really,
Like, they're everywhere. Like the QX60s and stuff like that, they're everywhere because they're cheap and they have like every tech feature that a soccer mom would want.
in terms of sales, yeah, sure. I'm sure that would keep
I mean,
Infinity
that's like,
afloat.
yeah, that's why I'm saying like maybe it won't go out of business simply because of the SUV lineup. But if they keep with this formula, like with the sedans and the coupes, they're gonna kill it. They have no choice. Nobody's buying them.
But hold on, let's talk about the SUVs though. So like at the top we have the QX80, which is effectively a
It's like the
Nissan.
Titan or the Armada. I
Yeah,
forget
it's an
what it is.
Armada with a bunch of luxury features. And then we
Yeah.
have the QX60, which only now got a real automatic and is even
It's a
then it's
nice one.
Pathfinder.
I watched the reveal for it. I think it's a really nice car.
It looks nice though. I'll give it that. It looks real
Yeah.
nice. But let's compare it to like the SUVs we had before. Like we had the FX, which is like a G SUV, and it had its
It
own
was
pizzazz to it.
it was like a sports SUV, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like kids whose parents wouldn't let them get a 350Z or G35 got an FX35. Like
and that was a
it
cool
was
car.
an affordable and obtainable sports SUV for a lot of people.
And then you have
Like it
the
was quick and it
EX
was
too.
nimble. It didn't feel top heavy. The X I've actually never driven one, so I can't really speak for that.
Yep, the EX is basically a G wagon, or G37 wagon, but just like slightly lifted up. It
I don't think I've ever even seen one in person, to be honest.
you be seeing them like every now and then, but
But FXs, those are everywhere. So like FX35 especially, you see them all over the place.
yeah, you've seen them everywhere. But like my point is like the older Infinity SUVs, well, in like early to mid 2000s, like they had personality, and they were like legitimate Infinities in that, like the G35, in my opinion, pretty much made Infinity, and
100%.
and
Yeah.
the EX, the FX, they had like the same vibe, and now like
They
don't
kept
even
the best thing about the G35 and turned it into an SUV. Like
exactly.
they did a real good job with it.
And then don't even get me started on the new QX50, which is a Rogue and CVT. You know what I'm saying? Variable compression turbo that's not that quick or not that fuel efficient, despite having a very advanced variable compression technology. It's just like, yeah, it's gonna sell because it's a SUV and it's today's market and it's
Yeah,
an
and
SUV
SUVs
that
always
exists,
sell.
no matter how bad they are. And I have proof of that. Chevrolet Trax, the worst modern car in my opinion.
Uh,
But
but in terms of Nissan, not Infinity, I think I'm excited. I think Nissan's gonna prove a lot of people wrong with the 400Z.
they have
Now,
promise.
I was thinking about it yesterday. Could be wrong, but it is the first sports coupe twin turbo, or I guess just turbo in general, manual that Nissan has made since the R34. I don't think that's wrong.
Well, since the
Maybe the S.
300ZX.
I guess you have like the S15 also, like the
That was a
SR20
4-cylinder.
motor.
This is a 6-cylinder.
Yeah, but it's still boosted. Is my point. Point is, it's like the first car that has like that formula like that since the GCRs, the older ones at least. And
Yeah.
it's like they took what they did really well on the G35 and especially the G37, where you sit really far back and the car's got a really long hood. Like
Yep.
that's a formula for coupes that works really well. They finally put a manual with the VR30, which is what everybody's been waiting
Yep.
for.
They did what everybody
And they
wanted.
gave it like a much needed interior facelift that the company was dying for. Like if you own a GTR and you have the same window switches out of an Altima, that's depressing. Like, an
Yeah.
Altima should share nothing with a GTR. Like the rear view mirror is the same. Like with the 400Z,
Turn signal
everything
stock.
is new. That's right. Like the buttons on the center console, but the 400Z, it's a completely new car with everything new about it. I think it's going to be amazing, and it's affordable. It's cheaper than the Q60.
It's cheaper than the Supra. I think
That also.
I think this new Z is gonna outsell the Supra by like a lot.
100%. And not only that, but people are still behind 370Zs, which is
Yeah.
blows my mind. It
Yeah.
is, in my opinion, like one of the worst sports cars ever. The 370Z, I do not like them.
You don't like it?
The 350Z was great. Up they like updated a few things about it, made it look a little bit better, make it have a little more power, make it ride a little bit better. Hard to like double, and then put the same exact car out for like 13 years.
Yeah. No,
And
it's
charge
pretty
the same
dated.
amount every single year. Like in 2019, and you have like a CD like thing right in the middle of the console. Like it's just
Yeah,
dated.
no.
It's an old car
It's
on an
pretty
old
dated.
platform. That the 400Z should have been introduced when the Q60 was introduced, in my opinion. This car is way overdue.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
370Z lived for way too long.
It's
Because
way
the
overdue.
350Z lived for 5 years. 6, I think, 2003, and then 2009 was the first year for the 370, I think.
Yeah.
And, by that, it would have been 2015, would have been time for the 400, and it would have been perfect, because that's when they had the motor done. But for some reason, they don't give these cars the potential they deserve, because God forbid it's anywhere near as good as the GTR, because nothing is as good as the GTR.
Because
They can't,
God
they just don't want to
forbid,
give cars the materials to be better.
God forbid, Nissan sales are cannibalized by other Nissan sales.
Right, because great example of that, my car has, a naturally aspirated motor,
Yeah.
but it has the same, because it's the sport coupe, it has the same exact LSD that the GTR has, right? So it has
Oh.
great power management. On the Q60, you have a motor that can make as much power as a GTR, but you have the most garbage differential.
They don't even offer a limited slip, if I'm
Right.
not wrong.
That's my point. No, they don't.
It's
You have to
crazy.
get one done yourself. Because you can't have it be as good as a GTR. You just can't. Granted, I understand, but there's you can make a 335 be as good as an M3 power-wise and time-wise around the track. There's nothing wrong with that. Why?
Yes.
Why? Because you're not, by doing that, you're not making more people buy a GTR.
Yeah.
All you're doing is making less people buy a Q60.
Exactly.
You don't have money for a GTR, you don't have money. I don't know. I think they're messing up real bad right now with Infiniti. They're very confused.
Even GM, they're not afraid. They weren't afraid to sell a Camaro Z01 that has the same motor as a Corvette Z06.
And the ZL1 1LE shattered every record that GM had on the track.
Yeah, by a lot.
It didn't matter what Corvette you had. The ZL1 1LE was amazing. Or a Hellcat and a Demon. At the track or at the drag strip, Viper is not keeping up. They're just not.
Yeah.
They don't care. They understand that there's a different clientele for each type of car.
As long as it's just make it as good as it can be. Why? There's no need
Make it
to hold
sell
it back.
well. Make it sell well. And if you want a
Yeah.
Q60 to sell well, you need to, give it the features it deserves. You can't have a car that makes 600 horsepower and has a diff that is capped at 400. You're terminating a bunch of car people. You're turning them a lot of them away from buying the car in the first place.
I think I think those Infinities suffer from what Johnny Lieberman likes to call Caymanism.
Is that like a Porsche Cayman term?
Yeah. It can't be as good as a
911.
911. Yeah.
I mean, dude, I recently, 2 weeks ago, I drove the 911 Carrera 4S.
992?
Right? The 2022 model. Yeah.
Insanely
And-
jealous of you doing that, by the way.
I'm going to be honest, it was one of the most underwhelming cars I've ever driven.
Really?
I drove a 2012 911 Turbo S with a 6-speed. And that was a great car.
997?
If you don't... maybe. It was 2011. I don't know Porsche's.
Oh yeah,
models
that's 997.2.
It is so clear that the 911 should only be offered in the Turbo S, in my opinion. And that was what I
Really?
felt from the car. The Carrera 4S, it was... I should not get in a Porsche and be like, damn, my Infiniti would blow the doors off of this thing. That's
Wow,
just
for
sad.
real?
That's $144,000 car. Not even sticker price. That's MSRP. And it just did not feel fast. which is that blew my mind. Like we were sending it like around turns, it was amazing, and like the PDKs, like people aren't. That was the first time I drove a PDK. People are not lying when they say it's the best transmission ever.
I drove
It is
PDK in the
amazing.
Macan before, and even that was amazing. It was a force.
No, it was incredible. It was an amazing experience. But I was doing pulls on the highway, and it was fast, but not unlike any other German car currently offered. Like if you get any German car anywhere near that price, it's an autobahn missile. Like if you're on the highway, you put your foot down at 70, you're at 150 like that. And there's like with no noise, no drama, nothing. That's just what German cars are good at. But with the 911, you expect more. Like in the Turbo S, and that thing, if you did a pull at 40 miles an hour on the highway, you're spinning the tires, which is just loads of fun. Like that's what you want from a 911. It's a driver's car. You don't want to fall asleep while doing pulls.
So you're saying that
I think it was boring. I'm gonna be honest. It was a very boring car.
it masked speed too much, too well.
Like it got up to speed too like easily.
No, I'm saying like the sense of speed was like diminished. Is that what you're saying?
No, because it wasn't that fast either. I'm saying in order for
Really?
in order for me to say that it's a great car, it would have to be really fast, like the 911 Turbo S. Like that's a car. Every time you get in that car, you do a pull, like you feel your gut sucked into your stomach, and that's like you're like, damn, like it's really worth every dollar you spend. But the Carrera Force was just a fast car, which is nothing new. Like I think it's 400 something horsepower. Like, that's not a lot anymore.
444.
That's not a lot of power. That's not a lot of horsepower anymore.
Yeah, you can get an Audi RS.
Torque is even less.
RS5. It'll be like half
Right.
of
Yeah. You can get an RS3, put $5,000 into it. Like it's power is just too easy nowadays, and there's no excuse for manufacturers. I understand it's dangerous, but nobody's gonna get turned away because the car has a lot of power. There's still moms that drive Hellcats just because they like the way they look.
that. Yeah. Or you
You're
see
not
how
gonna lose
many
any clientele by adding power.
you see how many Tesla Plaids have crashed into like people's homes? Like it's insane.
Right. Or like Kia Stingers, just because the top end model looks the best, besides the fact that it has a bunch of power, that's why people get them.
Yeah, people
I
don't
don't know.
decide.
I was disappointed at all. I would drive the E46 M3 that I had over that 911 any day of the week. Not even a question.
I think you
And
just
that
made
car
them-
had less power, it had less torque, it was older, it had it was SMG, so like it, how can I describe SMG? From 1/10 to 10/10, SMG sucks. At 11/10, it's the best transmission ever. So if you're driving that car really hard, it's a lot of fun. Which is how you should drive an M car, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
But
it's
yeah,
for.
no, it just wasn't a fun experience. Like especially if you've driven a lot of cars with a lot of power and a lot of money put into suspension and stuff like that, you're just underwhelmed. I've driven a lot cars that were a lot more enjoyable.
Wow. Yeah, I think you just made a
It's-
bunch of Porsche guys mad, but yeah,
I'm not
That's
saying it's a
interesting
bad
perspective.
car. It is a visually stunning car. That is one of the most beautiful cars I've ever looked at. Outside and inside, even inside, it is amazing. And the technology that they have, like with the fact that one thing that I was especially, surprised to see and happy to see was that on the left you had, like some of the readouts like the engine temperature and the oil pressure and whatnot.
Mhm.
And then on the right you had a screen that you could put anything on. You could put like your music on there, you could put navigation on it. And it could have the speedometer on it usually.
Right.
You don't need the speedometer because you have the digital speed in the middle. And then in the middle was a huge analog tachometer,
Yeah, I like
which
that
is
about
just
it, too.
amazing. Like that's such a nice feature to have because it feels like a car. Like with these cars with just huge, long, wide plastic screens that function as a dashboard, I think they suck. It doesn't feel like a car, especially in a car like Porsche where it's supposed to be a driver's car. Like you don't want that.
I think Aston Martin's like the
What?
worst offender. Remember, like the DB9, the gauges on it. It looked like an expensive watch, and now like the DB11, the DBS, super legit. It's just a screen. It's not
The
the
new
same.
Mercedes is the same way. Like even like the S63, the C63s, the E63s. It's just those like two really tacky wide screens.
Yeah.
That's it. Like sure you can put whatever you want on them, but like It's a sports car. On an S class, I can kind of understand. On a 7 series, I can kind of understand. But I don't want to see that on a C class or a 3 series. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, especially like if it's like gas car, like I prefer analog gauges. Like on an EV, it makes more sense for everything to be digitalized, but I like having like those analog dials.
Yeah, that was why when I got the gauges for my car, like the pillars, I was like a huge stickler about keeping like the theme of the car because I have analog gauges and they are digital, which really bugged me. But they have the blue ring around them that matches like the tachometer and the speedometer.
Yeah,
So yeah, no, I'm a huge stickler for analog gauges.
yeah. But back to what you're saying about the 911, guess what? You're not the only one that was
Mm.
bored of driving the 992. Even Jason
Who
Camisa
else?
said that like when you're
Yeah,
not
and
driving on
that
the
guy's
track.
driven some of the most enjoyable cars in the world. So if he
Yeah.
said that, then like it's the truth.
Yeah, so there's definitely some truth, a lot of truth in your statement. I think you probably would have had more fun driving the car on the track, but then again, like that's driving a car on a track, like you know what I
Which like
mean?
around here, like closest track is like 3 hours away. You don't
Yeah,
live near a track.
it's just if it's not fun on the street, then and it's like a sports car, then it's kind of like what's the point? At least in my opinion.
Uh, that car, in my opinion, should not be offered with anything besides the Turbo S model. The only reason it is because it's a very, very expensive car when you get the Turbo S.
Yeah.
And there's people that like the 911 but don't care for like the power and the handling.
Do you
But I
think
think Porsche would be fine without it.
do you think you would enjoy the car more if it was naturally aspirated like the older Carreras?
I drove a 2001
Ooh, that's a
911, and I
996.
I think I think that was naturally aspirated. It's like a 3.8, I think. It was a big motor,
It's a 3.6. If it was a
and
996.
maybe it screamed. It like had yeah, it was definitely naturally aspirated because it redlined at like 8,500. And I don't think that was more fun, but it definitely felt more pure. Like it really felt like a car, if that makes sense. But every
Mm,
car felt more fun 20 years ago, not just
yeah,
Porsche.
yeah, for sure.
But no, it was a kit at H2O. Yeah, it was a blue one. He had like the GT3 wing on it. It looked really really nice.
Mm. I like those generation 911s. Everybody
They're
else hates them
affordable
because of the
too.
headlights, but
Yeah, no, they're affordable ones also. You can get one with a 6 speed, $30,000. Granted, I will say Porsches hold their value amazingly well, especially 911s. In terms of like
yeah,
German cars,
crazy.
there really is no car that holds their value like 911s.
Oh yeah, it's
But
insane.
they're affordable. They're not, crazy expensive. Would I get one? Probably not. But
You gotta be careful with the IMS bearings too, like
for the
of those
what?
push. Um, yeah, like they had like the IMS bearings on those tend to fail and be very expensive to replace.
On the
Don't
older
ask me
911s or
like yeah, like the older like the 996 generation. So I believe that was from 98 or 99 to 2005. Same thing with the Boxsters and the Cayman. Well, not the Cayman because
Boxster?
the first gen Boxster. Thing is
Yeah,
97. If I'm not wrong.
I would take. I've never driven it, but based on what I've heard about it, I would take a Cayman GT4 over any other Porsche apart from a 911 Turbo. Like
Yeah,
you could hand me
definitely.
any 911, and I would take a Cayman GT4 over it.
Yeah,
That's just what
100%.
they're good at. They're good at making practical cars destroy hypercars on the highway and on the track. That's like Porsche's winning formula,
Yeah, GT4
and
is
be
very
just as
special.
comfortable the whole time. It's cheaper than like a 911 Carrera.
Yeah,
It's like 120 for a Cayman GT4,
yeah, you might as
if
well get
that.
that. What about the GT3? 911 GT3.
That's a tough one. That car is like reserved on the side. Like that does I don't apply that.
Yeah.
It's naturally aspirated. It's rear wheel drive. It's a whole different beast.
Well,
I like the GT3s a lot, but
on the newest GT3, they actually, unlike the regular 911s, like the Carreras and the turbos, they have a double wishbone front suspension, which is very uncommon. Like they
I'm gonna
made
say, yeah, that's not really a thing that they do. I don't know.
they made crazy changes to the 992 chassis. So I can't. It's. I bet if you drove that, you wouldn't find that boring.
Probably not. I mean, it's a GT3. I
Yeah.
would hope not. I mean, yeah, the GT3 and the GT2 are I don't even count those because those just win. Like,
Yeah.
even though they may not be as fast as the Turbo S, those are cars. Like the people that buy them are well aware of what they're capable of. They're not people that just buy them because they look nice.
They have insane
So I don't really
capability.
count those. Yeah, that's
S-
interesting.
So we took a hard left. I don't know how we got here, but back to Nissan. So, as a closing question, what do you think is the best product that Nissan or Infiniti makes currently?
Ooh.
It doesn't have to be your favorite.
Makes you realize they kind of suck. No, I'm just thinking like the Q60's all right. The 370Z is all right. The GTR is all right. Like they're all just kind of bad.
Yeah.
I would probably I would have to give it to like in terms of the best probably like a 2.0 Q50
Hmm.
because that's what you see a lot of. That's a car that makes a lot of sacrifices in like the performance aspect of things, but it doesn't matter because it's a car that you can get for $20,000 and it has amazing like luxury features for that kind of money. Like that's the same money you spend on, like a Chevy Sonic. It's a good car for the value.
Good value, yeah, for
I
sure.
don't I would never own one, but in terms of what I think is their best thing right now, maybe the SUVs as well. I would put like a small engine Q50 up there.
I think
My favorite
mhm,
would still be a
favorite.
GTR, but I don't think like if you have GTR money, I wouldn't spend it. They messed up with this generation.
Yeah, just get a used one if you're gonna buy a GTR.
Right. It's a shame because the first gens are really nice, and then the second gens, the ones that they have now, are nicer in a lot of ways, but they also ruined it in a lot of ways that they had no reason to ruin them in.
They try to
Like
make it
just
a
the way they're
luxury car.
driven, the way they handle. Right. They try to make like a luxury supercar, which is never what anybody wanted from a GTR.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, so I don't think like I just don't think it's worth the money. A lot of their cars right now, they're just not worth it. Like you want to spend 40,000 $40,000 on a 370Z? No way. Not worth it.
Well, you haven't even touched
You
the
have
worst
cloth
part.
seats.
The worst part about the GTR, the new one, is apparently like when you're in like regular drive and you're in sixth gear and having to kick down and how long it takes for it to actually downshift.
Yeah, 'cause it goes like 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Like it just slowly kicks down through all the gears instead of just snapping right to the gear it's supposed to be in.
Meanwhile,
Like a CVT kickdown is faster than the new GTR
yeah,
kickdown.
it's insane. Meanwhile, the
It's
Priuses
horrible.
that you're trying to pass is like leaving you for dead. It's crazy.
Yeah. And not only that, but I don't know what they did to the turbos, but they lag really bad now. They lagged a little bit before, but they lag a lot worse now.
Oh yeah. Lot of- Well, they
Which
probably
is
just
weird
tried to
because
up
the
the boost.
Q60s, yeah, that's probably why. The Q60s have like a new technology. I know they're water cooled. My brother knows a
Oh,
lot better, but they're like the fastest spooling turbos in any like in any production car right now.
hmm.
So I would
Interesting.
expect them to put that in whenever they facelift the GTR, I would expect those turbos to be in there because as you can see with tuners, they can very easily make the power that a GTR makes. So it would make sense that those turbos get put into a GTR, maybe just a little bit bigger. I don't know.
That'll be the smart thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
So this might shock you, but I think the best product that Nissan makes currently is the new Pathfinder. Again, it's not my favorite because I'm not an SUV person at all. In fact, I'm ready to do an episode of Misshift where I just completely just rant about SUVs and tear them apart. But aside from that, so I think I like it because it's kind of a return to form of like the older Pathfinders of kind of being a rugged like luxury SUV. It's still a transverse like front wheel drive based, but I think it looks a lot better. It's more like SUV-y, in that it tows more and it's more off-road worthy. It has a really nice interior.
It's a car that has a mission statement, and like Nissan knew exactly what to do to like make that car offer it. Like
Yeah.
they didn't mess up really. It doesn't have a lot of great things, but they didn't really mess up anywhere with it either. So I can kind of see what you're saying.
I think it shows a lot of promise with like, at least in terms of like the kind of like the regular cars like Altima, Sentra, stuff like that. I think it shows a lot of promise in like future Nissan products. And one of the main reasons why is they finally ditched the CVT and they put a ZF 9-speed automatic.
Man, people hate the CVT, man. I don't think it's a bad transmission.
Oh, I can't. I think it's.
It's a little unreliable. I'll say that.
That's the worst part.
I've had two, and I beat on my cars all the time. I haven't had a single problem with either of them. So I don't know. I feel like they get a little too much hate. They're definitely not great. Saying they're good is a bit of a reach also. But people consider it to be like the worst transmission in like any manufacturer. Like I think that's pushing it a little bit.
Okay.
Audi's had some bad ones also.
Okay, fine. Like I would rather have a CVT than like a 4-speed automatic or 3-speed. But
4 on the floor.
I would like in terms of Nissan's CVT specifically, I would mind it a lot less if it was more reliable. But like my main issues with them is they're just too fragile. And
The problem is these transmissions, like in the older Ultimas, I mean even in the newer ones, wherever the CVT is, they last about 120 to 150,000 miles. And here's the problem with that. In 120 to 150,000 miles, the job to fix the transmission becomes more expensive than the car is worth.
exactly.
Which at that point, like, you might as well just get rid of the car. That's the problem. Which I don't know. I don't really know how you get past that.
That's what I'm saying.
Toss it, I guess, which is what they did. But
Like they should have just put like a 6-speed or even an 8-speed automatic like every other car, but they didn't because they said like, oh, CVT is more fuel efficient, it's faster, it's better. And here's the new Pathfinder.
And then it's not.
The new Pathfinder is
Which is more fuel efficient than the last one, which is faster than the last one.
it's almost a full second from 0 to 60 faster. And it gets better fuel economy on top of everything else. So
The ZF transmissions are really nice. I'm glad that a lot of manufacturers switched over to that. And it's really like they're a lot smoother as well. It's no like abrupt downshifts on like under like a heavy braking load.
Yeah.
It doesn't slip much if you're out of in throttle. They're solid transmissions for a daily driver. They're perfect.
yeah, well the 9-speed they actually had issues with it at first, but I think
That's what's
they
in
kinda ironed
the
it
new
out.
QX60, right?
Yeah, even the new QX60 has that. It's also, the Pathfinder, the
haven't heard, but
QX60 is like
I'll
the same
believe
car. But oh yeah, another thing I love about the new Pathfinder is they stuck with the VQ engine. They didn't put like some dinky old 2.0 T. They're still using
It has like a BQ37 in it.
no VQ35 DD. So it's the direct injection version.
Oh jeez, I don't know. They still made that motor. What do you know?
Oh yeah, you can still get it in a Maxima,
I'm
Pathfinder, Murano.
I mean, besides the oil problems, it's a great motor. It is a great motor. And I mean, they kind of fixed all the oil problems in like the past few years. Obviously.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they did. Well, I think the HRs.
I was just talking to my brother the other day when I was trying to fix my window. So
Yeah.
what happened to my car with the regulator happened to a lot of G35s. And you had to take the whole door off to fix it. On the G37,
Mhm.
the way you fixed it was by just taking the panel off and replacing it. So a little bit easier. On the Q60, there's two little panels they're like tabs almost that you take off on either side of the window, and you can almost get the whole thing out like that. And I was laughing with my brother. I'm like, dude, instead of just making this not be a problem anymore, they give you easier ways to fix the problem. Like, just fix it. Don't like manufacture the whole car around fixing these problems easier. Like on a G35, the car leaks oil because just a multitude of reasons, and like the oil filter's in a bad place. So you put a catch can, right? Which is what a lot of them have. On a G37, instead of getting rid of oil problems, they just tried to turn it, because like that, it won't come down anymore. It'll come to the side. Like, just so many stupid like things that they just did to cheap out. Like, I think that's the only reason, is simply just to be cheap.
Yeah, Nissan's hilarious in a lot of ways. So
They kill me.
that reminds me. So where do you think Nissan peaked?
Let me think. 2000. I would say 2009. I say 2009 is peak.
Okay.
The GTR, the G37, and the 370Z all came out that year. And facelifted SUVs came out. It was just a fantastic year. Everybody was crazy over the GTR. The 370Z was an affordable GTR that felt the same, but it didn't perform the same. But fundamentally, it felt like you were in a very similar car. And the G37 felt exactly like a 370Z, except comfortable.
Yeah.
So they just, in my opinion, that was the best year for them, without a doubt.
They had some good stuff that year. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great year. And even before that, you had the 350Z and the G35 being offered with the HR motor, which everybody loves. You can't even find them anymore nowadays because everybody loves them so much.
Oh yeah, I know.
Like that 2007 to 2011 window was just perfect, in my opinion.
So I actually think they peaked in the mid 90s. And the reason why I say that is because, well, the Skyline is a big one. Everybody already knows.
The Skyline was a car that flopped at launch. Nobody really bought the Skyline when it came out.
Well, because it was very
GTR,
expensive.
The GTR, yeah, but the GTS and the GTT, people didn't really buy those cars. They just didn't make sense to buy. Like, you find them everywhere, and that's why a lot of people have four-door Skylines because they're so cheap. Nobody wants them. They're just not great, the best cars. And what I was saying earlier, that was a great year for Infiniti, the mid '90s. That was where Infiniti really showed its how good they could be in the manufacturer community. I mean, I could agree with that, but at the same time, not really.
I don't think it performed that well in terms of sales, but as far as perceived quality of the products and just the reliability and how many Nissans were overbuilt during that time, I think that's why I think that was such an amazing time for them. And if anything, it was the Nissans that were produced then were too good for their own good, because they were too expensive.
100%.
Yeah, they were way too
100%.
expensive for them to produce on the level and the standards that they were back then, which is why in the early 2000s, they really cheaped out on the cars when they merged with Renault.
If they did today what they were doing back then, I think it would be a hot dog competitor with some of these other car manufacturers.
But then again, they
would have money nowadays.
Yeah, they wouldn't even have the money to do so if they continued in the ways. That's why they had to do a lot of cost cutting in the early 2000s. But let's forget about the Skyline. Even stuff like you had the Sentra SER.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The Ultima had a head-up display. That was in the 90s.
Yeah.
It was crazy. They really took technology and forward thinking serious back then.
It was just underappreciated because in the early 90s, nobody wanted a Nissan. Because back then you think Nissan a cheap Japanese car. And garbage cheap. So they definitely they advanced too quickly. People couldn't figure out that it was a good car in time. Nissan already lost too much money by then. By the time people realized that maybe they aren't bad cars.
Did you see the Porsche ad? It was like a billboard where they kind of poked fun at Nissan. It said something Have you ever dreamed about owning a Nissan? It's or
That's
something to
crazy.
that effect. And it was like a 993 911. It was an air cooled one. That's all I know. But
Yeah.
yeah, people didn't take Japanese cars seriously. But it's funny because in the early 2000s, even though they cheaped out on the cars, like the appeal for the cars was insane. Like the
It's more than it was in the
350Z.
90s. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Nissan was a bigger company then than it was when it was better. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like think about the early 2000s. G35, FX35, 350Z, Milano.
Pathfinder.
Dude, the Quest, the 04 Quest got people that didn't even care about minivans into minivans. And the proof of it is my mom when she bought '04 Quest back in '07. Like she was about it, bro, and she still thinks about it to this day.
Nah, man, I just want a Juke R, that's all.
Zuke Nismo.
Yeah, there's only like 7 of them in the world. But
I would
that's
actually,
what I need.
I could actually really mess with that car.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, I would drive that. But yeah, I just wish the brand the best. They're gonna bounce back from this. You know, like the way the new cars, the new lineup, you know, the new Z.
They're gonna
I'm
make
just worried
enough
about
money off
Infiniti.
400Z to do whatever they want,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
What helps that,
Infinity might die, but it's okay because we'll have the 400Z.
and it helps that they reuse
What'll
the
save Infinity? Sorry.
yeah, it helps that they reused the FM platform and just like updated it because really that's a good platform. They don't
Yeah.
really need a new one. Or do you disagree?
Yeah, no, not at all. What I think, no, I'm just thinking what would save Infinity, in my opinion, is offering all-wheel drives with a manual. That's what that turns away so many
Mm.
people.
Yeah, there's not many of those.
And like it almost turned me away, and like, I really don't care for like I didn't want a manual anyway. But I was like seriously bothered by the fact that they just like why don't you offer it? Like it's not like it's hard to do. They've done it before.
Yeah.
Why will you like it? And people will buy automatics if they want them. But like offer it with a manual. You have manual G37s. You have a bunch of them, and you have all-wheel drive G37s. Like what is so hard to manufacture the two together?
You know what? Now that you say that, I think the reason why manual G37s didn't sell is because rear-wheel drive G37s in general didn't sell that well. And had they
Yeah,
offered it
if
with
you want one,
all-wheel
just get a
drive,
370Z. Yeah, just get a 370Z at that point. Like,
yeah, exactly.
if you're buying a manual G37, you don't. Well, me personally, I would take a manual G37 over a 37,
Oh,
but it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense to a lot of people for that because the 370Z is cheaper. But you know, at the time when it came out, nobody really wanted a manual G37. This was like early in the tuning world of it. The car wasn't really, the potential wasn't known yet. So it didn't matter. The only reason people want them now is because they can make 900 horsepower on stock block and stock transmission. That's why so many people want manual G37s now.
Yeah, I think times are different now. I would say like a few years ago, like nobody cared about, well, people that were buying new cars, like they didn't care about manual. But now, like
All of a
manuals are
sudden,
making a comeback.
everybody's sticklers for manuals. Yeah.
I think manuals are making a comeback though, because the Z's are
100%.
manual.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Like Porsche with the 991 911, they took away the manual option for the GT3, and then they brought it back for the facelift.
Yeah, because
And-
everybody went crazy when they took away the manual option.
Oh, yeah.
That's what made the GT3 the GT3.
they had pitchforks when that happened. And then you got the Aston Martin Vantage. Didn't come with the manual before. Now comes with the manual. It's only a matter of time until the new Supra gets offered in the manual. Really, it's not that hard. Like you already have the M240i, which is manual, just swiggity swap.
It's the same thing. You just have to be like you just have to come out, I guess, to fit the shifter into the interior. That's like the biggest of their problems.
Yeah, no.
Other than that, they have the technology for it.
Yeah, no, they're just playing.
I mean, M cars are now all-wheel drive and manual.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many all-wheel drive manual cars that are like sports cars that exist. And if you don't do that, you're cutting off essentially half of the country. If you live from like North Carolina up, cannot buy them because you need all-wheel drive, unless you have two cars. You're just losing a huge potential market.
Yeah. Well, luckily they're starting to realize that. At least that's what I think. That's what I hope. But yeah, guys, if you have enough money to buy a new car, get the manual. Because if you don't, then they're gonna be like, well, what's the point of selling a manual if people don't buy it? Like, why, waste? Like, buy manuals, guys. Don't sleep on them.
Yeah. Save the manuals.
Save the manuals.
Is that every question you had for tonight?
Yeah, I think that about covers it, unless there was something that you wanted to add, anything that you wanted to plug.
I talked about everything that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Whoever listened this far, thank you. That is all I can ask for.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you if you've listened thus far. Yeah, I'm pretty much out of steam. We should do this again sometime. Same time next week?
No. But if you want to see somebody in particular, like, if you want my brother to come on or Gavin to come on.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be a movie.
Or if you know anybody that watches this, wants anybody in particular, just ask. I imagine it can happen pretty easily.
Yeah, I hope people watch this because this is definitely time consuming. But I have fun. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even if they didn't, like, I just came in here, I got to chill with you for a couple hours. Like, I don't care. It was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. But hopefully I get clout off of the next episode. I should be having Nav's Garage. So Nav, if you're watching this, now you have to come on the show. Now that I just shouted you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Nav's Garage, you said?
Yeah. You've seen him
Really
before.
familiar.
You've had to.
Yeah, that sounds really familiar.
He has like the blue Mustang
Yeah,
GT.
okay. Yeah. I know this guy now. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, hopefully, I get other guests on here too that are even bigger. But if not, I'm fine with having you on. Or Gavin or David.
Adam LZ, bro. Let's get him on here.
Yeah. Let's get Adam LZ on here.
Oh.
But
All right, bro. Well,
I would say
that's all you
a
needed
show.
me for, then.
So what'd you say?
I have people waiting for me. I said, if that's all you needed from me, then I have people waiting for me.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. But thank you for your time. Thank you for your words words of wisdom, sharing your experience, everything.
All right, bro. Just text me then.
Yeah, I got you. It was a good movie.
All right, see you, bro.
All right, see you. Take care. Have a good day, everybody.